It's the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in less than 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first question, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. And I like that already setting parameters of 9 minutes. My name is Karim Noorani. I'm a business guy at heart. I've been in business development and strategy for a long time, over 30 years. Originally born in Kenya, studied in Canada, moved to the US, and currently working as the Chief Strategy Officer for Link2, which Link2 is an online platform. We've developed a marketplace for investors and startup companies to meet, and we are a platform that allows investors to buy primary and secondary shares, acorns to unicorns.
Great. Question number 2, what's the best thing about working with a team?
So this is a really interesting question. I mean, if you look at my background, for over 30 years, I've been employed, I've been a business owner, I've invested in companies, I've co-founded and founded companies of my own. So I've been on both sides. I've been hired, I've been fired. I've hired and fired a lot of people. And so in the thing that I've taken away from all of these aspects is that it's very, very difficult for anyone to survive, succeed, and grow on their own. So you have to have a team, because a team comes to you with a different background, different characters, different strategies, and a different educational level and interests. And once you put all of these together, you've got something that works.
I think that's great. I love that insight. Thank you. Question number 3. I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell me your thoughts on that.
So I'll give you a little story. It's like I've invested in companies before, and what was really interesting for me was when I was an early investor in a company in the mid-2000s, and it was beautiful. The CEO of the company was the CEO of the company, and he was exceptional. He was a magician at raising funds and selling to large-size corporates. That's what we were doing. His engineering team knew what they needed to do. The UI, UX engineers, they knew what they were strong at. And it was like when you saw these guys in a room together, and they were virtuals half the time and together in a room half the time, it was like a symphony. Nobody needed to oversell. They were all working. They knew what they were strong at. They knew what they were weak at, and they let everyone do their stuff.
Mm-hmm. I like that word that you used, the symphony of a team. That's a great word.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Question number 4. What other piece of advice would you give to leaders of teams?
Listen. You have to listen. It's weird, but a lot of people give that word sort of a very cursory feel. And what I found is that, when we go into a room, if we're a member of the team or we're the leader of the team, an employee or an employer, we always have an agenda. We have an agenda for the meeting. We have an agenda for the phone call. We have an agenda for everything. And sometimes if you don't pay enough attention to who you're discussing things with, whether it's a team member or the team in whole, you don't hear the nuances, and you have to listen to what's said, what's unsaid, and get a feeling of the environment and your gut. Basically, I'm referring to a gut feel of what's going on. Mm-hmm. One of the companies that we had in Kenya, I was brought in to turn the company around. The owners of the company, it was a steel rolling plant for the construction industry. And the owners were really worried because the plant was only running at 25, 30%. And they said, hey, what's going on here? So I was brought in to take a look at it. Turns out that the company had over 300 employees, and it was a completely multicultural, diverse group of employees, from the floor workers to the managers and the sales staff, completely different. And they were all motivated by different aspects. So what we had to do is to understand the different driving forces of these employees in the various departments, and hear from them exactly what was important to them and what made them feel great and good. And so once I understood what they wanted, I was able to weave the team together, even though they were very diverse culturally and language-wise. And we turned the company around in 24 months, and we tripled the sales and production. So it was a beautiful. So the upshot is understand and listen to the people that you're working with, the team that you have.
Oh, that's
So
great.
listening is listening actively, hearing actively, and intuitively is very important.
Oh, couldn't agree more. That's great, great advice. Thank you. Question number 5. What other successful team leaders, such as yourself, would you like to recognize, or do you feel have had a positive influence on your life?
You know, this is, I've come across dozens and dozens of folks that I've always learned something from. The folks that I'm working with right now that come to mind is Bill Saris. He's the CEO and founder of Link2, the company I work with now. Really, he's been around the block a couple of times, understands that he has to give his team the ability to perform independently, but he's very strict and knows what the goal is. So he keeps everyone on track in that manner. Alexandra Trolli, a partner at Metavelin.vc, a VC company in Greece. She has this beautiful innate ability to understand instinctively what her colleagues and people she works with need, and she encourages the positive environment and gets the best out of them. I got to mention my good friend Peter Henry, building a fund called Seed Milestone Fund. Probably one of the most brilliant guys I know. Deep academic, entrepreneurial background, and he is one of those guys who's really authentic. When he cares about someone, you know, he puts in 110% to help them out. Obviously, Cynthia Johnson, who runs Bell and Ivy, beautiful person. I've worked with her for years and years, and she, every time I brought her into a company or to consult with a company, she's there. And this is what I mean by my previous statement. She comes in there and actually listens to what the company or the entrepreneur or the leader is trying to achieve, and she'll give you candid feedback. Yeah, it's possible. No, it's not possible. Or here's my advice for you.
That's an impressive list. You've obviously had the opportunity to work with a lot of great people, so thank you for recognizing those people. Well, Karim, final question. Tell us about your first job.
my most adventurous job.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it, please.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in this Land Cruiser. We're driving overnight. We're driving overnight. Take a nap, take a kip in the back for a few hours. Wake up early morning in the dawn, and the background picture you see there is exactly what I wake up to. It's a desolate landscape with 100 holes in the ground. We had just bought a mine in Tanzania, East Africa. And that was my introduction to my corporate headquarters. I said, boy, here it is. This is where you're working. Let's build a mine. So literally blood, sweat, and tears. And 18 months later, we had our first bar of gold.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great story. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Karim, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
The best way is on LinkedIn. It's Karim Noorani on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. Send me a note. Tell me why you're connecting with me, and I'll respond. But you got to tell me why. So Karim Noorani at LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter as well at KNoorani. Pretty simple.
That's great. Thanks again, Karim. Appreciate you being on the podcast. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders share their insights. For more ideas, you can find us on LinkedIn by searching Blue Sky Business Consulting. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.